chance you can do something amazing to feel your passion blazing and shine. Yeah.
Paint with every vision, dance in new directions, explode to new heights in your mind.
I will rise up with you today.
Lift up my voice.
Lift up my voice and boldly say, we are the ones we've been waiting for.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to AGNT Speaks. I am Reverend Erin McCabe, and I come to you from the state of Missouri, from Unity Village Chapel, as part of your AGNT Leadership Council. So it is our delight to welcome you into a conscious conversation every week for AGNT Speaks. You can join us live in the Zoom room, or you can join us on social media, or you can always check out the YouTube archives at any time at your leisure. So when we come together on behalf of the Association for Global New Thought, and we come together to inspire mindful action, to create moments in our daily lives, in our world, where we can acknowledge the spiritual practice and how it applies to the things going on today. So there is no shortage of things that are up for your life. So think about the things that are going on in your life. And if you want to post to us on Facebook, social media, or email AGNT and let us know what you would like us to address, we're happy to take on some of those concerns, some of those thoughts and ideas from a spiritual perspective. So we're glad to be back. We were on a little summer break and we are back. We are live. We are in action. And it is my delight to welcome one of my beloved friends and AGNT Council leader members, the Reverend Temple Hayes. She is coming to us live from Florida. And Temple, it's just so good to see your face again and so good to have you here. I want to just welcome you with my whole heart back to our broadcast. Thanks for being here today.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be with you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
We're shifting the format a little bit from last year. But one of the things I was thinking about before we went live today, knowing that you were going to be on with us today, is transformation and change, and a kind of the spiritual practice as it relates to what a lot of people are going through right now, which is having a lot on their plate, having everything be different or interesting. You know, right now I am aware of people that are planning a wedding and they've planned their wedding multiple times before. A lot of people are having this. They planned it and then it got canceled. Then they planned it and then it got canceled. And they're trying to figure out how to do this consciously, safely, and going through all the normal things that people go through when they're planning a wedding. I know that there are individuals that are caregivers, that are caring for people in these interesting times, that have brothers, sisters, kids, family members that have needs at these times. And so they're going through that process of caring for others. I know people who are going through the process of learning again how to nurture and nourish themselves. And how do I do that in these current circumstances that I'm experiencing in my life? How do I do that? I know parents who are going through incredible discernments as far as school and what their activities are like with their kids, family issues and systems at home, and how things are unfolding. So there is so much happening for people today. One of the things that made me think of you this week is that I found, or someone else found that was helping me out, found a snake skin, both in my shed and in my garage. So I know that snakes, I know that you're an animal person, you're an animal lover, and a reptile, animal, the whole animal kingdom, queendom. And I know that snakes represent transformation. And I think transformation and change is something that is going on for a lot of people right now. So I just want to kick off our conversation with that today.
Absolutely. Yeah. Then when you see snake skin and that nature, it also, these type of things that we see, they are related to us, so
Yeah.
There's something within you that is shedding some layers, some skin,
Yeah.
new beginnings,
which is what I have going on. And also outer layers, because they were outside of the home. So that metaphysically could be in my outer circumstances, in the outer world, rather than inner stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
Go on.
It is that, as far as, transformation goes. Well, I've always loved the idea that spirituality doesn't replace common sense. And to me, I feel fortunate that for many years I traveled across the country and others and taught stress management. And now I can look back and go, well, the reason I was picked to do that is because I needed it, you know. But one of the things that is so clear about stress is that there will always be stress. You know, it could be 9/11, it could be, you know, the pandemic, it can be whatever, personally, or, you know, something with the kids, or there's stress that's always up. But the question is, when we look at what do we have control over? And that's where we can be healthier, is that we can define for ourselves, these are the things today or this week that I have control over, and the rest I don't have control over. And
Yeah.
so I allow it to create this core within me of not being out of proportion with myself. There's just a lot of things right now that are uncertain. And we have been teaching this for many of us, what, 30, 40, you haven't, but some of us 30, 40, 50 years. And we have a former AGNT leader, Dennis Merritt Jones, that his book is The Art of Uncertainty.
Yeah,
Now Joan Bornacinco, I was laughing the other day. I was on an interview and I said, I've quoted her so much on this that one day I just hope she'll let me have it. But she says, you know, it's the difference between the no longer and the not yet. That it's that space between the no longer and the not yet. And it's that ability. And you were talking about summer, and, you know, often that's a time for families to regroup, take a time out, and they're able to reassess their values and where they're
Yes.
putting their time and where they're putting their energy, and they
Yeah.
come to be aware that they're working too many hours for really healthy parenting or modeling, or, you know, whatever
Yeah.
that might be. But the other part of that is that with this pandemic, you know, it's taking as long as it's taking. And I had witnessed, and I think we talked about this in the spring, you know, how the people that aren't fighting it, I didn't say they necessarily like it, but the ones that aren't fighting it, they're having aha moments. They're
Oh,
having
yeah.
new awarenesses. They're,
Absolutely.
you know, shedding the snake skin. And I was admiring a lot of people about that they are decided to move to the mountains or to
Yeah.
Portland, Oregon from
Yes.
Florida. And I went, how cool, you know, but none of that's happened to me. I'm still here in this same city. Well, I'm not now. I won't be another month from now. I am moving to California. So it grabbed me too. And we are needing to be grabbed now in our consciousness,
Yes.
because there's a greater vibration for us to be in alignment with, for us to be open to in our hearts. And the secret is, what is it that all the wise people have said, is the path of least resistance, right?
Yes, yes. And you know what? That's interesting because I was talking with someone the other day and I was checking in with them on a change that they were intending to make. They were going to initiate a change kind of about a year ago. And I was checking in because they said, you know what, I'm going to stay put for right now until things settle down and then I'll make the big change. And so I was checking in with them, seeing how they're doing, what they're thinking about this change. And what she said to me was, I am just going to stay put for right now because this is not a time to make big changes. And I kind of went into the reasons why, and wait till everything's over. And I just gently said, yes, that is how a lot of people are taking it. And I have also witnessed a lot of people saying there is no better time than this to make a significant change. And I have noticed, like you said, families moving from where they live to the mountains, or changing their house and downsizing to what really matters and what really makes sense, shifting and working from home, and homeschooling their kids, or doing something different. I know people, because I have the grace of living here at Unity Village, I know people that came through our Sunday morning service in an RV. And I said, where are you from? They said, we're Unity folks that used to go to Unity on the River in Massachusetts. And I said, oh, say hello to them for us. And they said, no, we're not there anymore. We live on the road now. We made a big decision. We got clear on what our life was about. And now we're traveling and we're living on the road. So it is also a time that there is a lot of support when we are getting the intuition and feeling like something in our lives isn't aligning, and we're ready to make a new change. We're ready to have a shift and to allow ourselves to be open to listen, like you said, to be listening, to be guided, because the brain and the fear and all that can kick in and go, oh no, it's not time for this. Well, it's not time for something if our intuitions and our guidance say it's not time for something. But I hear your little ones, but it is time for something. They're excited about California, huh? Those little ones. They're like, yeah, but
Oh,
do
they
it.
are. They're
Go for
excited
it.
about just about everything.
Yeah.
Well, I think that, it's admirable when people will say, I'm determined not to do anything right now. This is not the best time. And I think that we in AGNT, we've had many meetings like this, and we talked about people being in God's waiting room. You can't put your heels in the sand. You can in your head, but it's really impossible with your heart. And that's what you are articulating. We can say and affirm, this doesn't feel like the right time. And if that's our intuition, that's wonderful. But if it's just mentalizing or
Right.
being in fear, like you're saying, we are in the way of a forward movement of our lives. And
Right.
so you still want to watch the signs and
Absolutely.
things that are, coming your way. I know that the first time I was talking with someone and was telling her that don't forget I'm coming to visit in California and I look forward to seeing you. And she said, oh, you're not just coming here to visit. You're going to be moving here. And I went, well, God, I have no idea. And, no, I don't see that happening. And, blah, 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 blah. And I thought, well, I fixed that. I took care of that. 4 days later, somebody else shows up at my house. I wanted to let you know that Mother Mary always talks to me, and she told me to tell you you're moving to California. 3 days later, somebody else called me and asked me if I had an exit plan. Another week later, I was at lunch with a friend, and she looks at me. She said, I have goosebumps. You're moving to California. It went on 4 times.
Wow.
So that's what we're talking about, Erin, is that you choose not to close off your soul, asking of you to evolve.
That's right.
Because otherwise it's just mumbo jumbo, being in your head.
Right.
Because it's really, we are going into the deepening of our hearts now. And we are realigning our root chakra, because our root chakra is the core of what is born with us that says, I belong here. And with all of this up with COVID and are you going to die, and the media and the constant bombardment of it's awful and, everybody's dying and, all that. I mean, it has definitely got our groundedness a bit off kilter. And so for those of you that are writing us and talking about being more aware and being more connected, I mean, the true secret is about being grounded, spending time outdoors, being in Mother Earth, making that connection, because those are the kind of things that they are cheap and they are available and they
are
can
healthy.
ground you, and they are healthy.
They create an amazing reaction in your physical body temple, releasing endorphins, creating serotonin. Yeah.
Absolutely. I remember a story of a man, true story, that he was very ill, and he went from expert to expert in New York, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with him. And it was awful. He thought he was going to die. And finally, he went to one naturopath, and the doctor said to him, "When is the last time you've been outside?" And he
Mm,
said, "Well, I don't really know. I live on the 30th floor, and I go down and I catch the bridge, and then I go to my office, and that's kind of my
wow.
life." And he said, "Well, for 6 months, go to Central Park, hug trees, be outdoors, and come back to see me." And the man was healed.
Wow. Wow. And Myrtle Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, part of her healing practice for healing from physical ailment was to be outdoor. It was nature. That's exactly one of
Mhm.
the key elements that she got. And, a lot of people forget that about the practice of the Fillmores, that it wasn't just mind action. It wasn't just the thoughts they hold in mind, that it was also outdoor and a healthy, clean environment, healthy, clean food, vegetarian food. There was so much more to the practice. It wasn't just intuiting the knowing that they are born blessed and here to be whole and healed. It was how to do that and how to go about that. And exactly
Exactly.
what you're talking about was part of that practice.
Yeah, the choices that we make, and yeah, and Charles was very adamant about we should never eat animal, and that you embody,
Assume that
you
current,
digest the anger and the problems
well,
of
and
those
how
animals.
treated, yes, how they're treated and what they're holding when they pass, because a lot of the treatment as they go out is really torture. It's really unbelievable that in this day and age that we still allow that to happen. In fact, we protect the corporations and the companies that create that, and we make it almost impossible for people to document and correct that type of treatment of animals. So we could get started, you and I, on a whole nother conversation that could go hours and hours if we go that direction. I really appreciate this conversation today because I think that a lot of people are, just really working with the principles and the practice on how it applies on a practical level with so much shifting and so much changing. And with that change, their modes of showing up changing. How we show up for a changing world has to also change. So we have to kind of not only reinvent our lives sometimes, but also reinvent how we nurture ourselves, what our spiritual practice lives, what feels like, what our social life feels like. There's so much reinventing going on, and that can be scary. And so that key that you're kind of bringing us to is to stay grounded, to let go of fear, not stand in fear, but stand in our intuition and stand in our guidance and move forward to the good that is calling you, that is inviting you in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, again, we go back to we focus on what we can control. And so many people spend their time focusing on what they can't control. And it's all consuming.
Yeah.
And it will lock you in place.
Yeah.
It will shut down your electrical system,
Yeah.
your vibratory field,
Yes.
the
Well, and
light.
that's a huge point for us to kind of really pause with too, because you could think of it as like, okay, we just upset ourselves when we don't let go of the things we can't control. But in fact, something else starts to happen. When we don't practice what you're saying and let go of the things we can't control, sometimes we can start trying to control things to make them go along with what our minds or our hearts or what we want. And
Mhm.
that can be a really slippery slope and a tricky road. That can be, even a bit traumatic for people when we're trying to force something to
Mhm.
go a certain way that just really isn't emerging.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I've been pondering over the last year or so is that to me, my mind creates what I already know. And so, got it. My mind creates what I already know. My heart creates what I'm yet to know. And to me, that's the distinction. It's been life altering for me to stay in that space of the heart being open, because, we are adventurous human beings, and we need to focus on more than just what we already know and we've convinced ourselves that we know. I believe was it Alvin Talifer that said, the 21st century belongs to the unlearned,
Mm.
those that have had to unlearn um, so that there can be more of an awakening of what is possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I am now popping into the chat room. So we are live on social media, but we also have a Zoom room, and we have the ability to post some questions into the Zoom room. So let's take a look at some of those questions. Mitch, you shared the idea that during this time of COVID, during this interesting time of some social isolation, which not everybody is practicing, you know, some people are practicing that, some people aren't at all. But during this time, you're saying from your perspective, that has created a yearning to be close to other human beings. But you've also noticed that that desire is showing up from your understanding as not honoring another person's personal space. And you're asking for our thoughts on that. So that's a real interesting question. And I can say, you know, I haven't myself heard too much about that, except that I have heard from some beloveds that are not vaccinated that they have been surprised by those who are vaccinated at the kind of lack of awareness around creating space around them for their own safety, and not just coming right into their space and initiating a hug or initiating touch, rather than just checking in and making sure to ask first, like we would if we're addressing, you know, someone else's children that we don't know what their parents, you know, are kind of holding around them as far as protocol. And so I have noticed that. Temple, do you have any thoughts on what Mitch is bringing to our attention that, you know, I'm wondering if anyone else has noticed that they haven't felt like their personal space is being honored. I could say that I think to some degree people have been kind of out of the social kind of atmosphere enough that sometimes we're forgetting some social norms. Like, you know, maybe you're forgetting to brush your hair or wear clothes that are not pajamas out. No, I'm just kidding. But any other thoughts on that, Temple?
Well, you know, for me, it's the practice of not dividing myself from anyone else. And we have been coming off of a few years of severe division. And here we are again. You're vaccinated, you're not vaccinated. And, you know, people have asked me, well, how do you cope with it? And I said, well, I think it's because in my youth, you know, I was so treated so horribly because of being gay. And so I got used to that pressure as a young kid of being ousted or not being accepted or, you know, whatever. But I do think that people do need to look at that what are you feeding that keeps that division going? Because that's exactly where a lot of systems want us to be. Because as long as you're in the practice of division, you don't feel that you are enough. You don't feel that you are okay. You're broken on some level. And that's the way you view and perceive other experiences. And that's part of the old paradigm of a lot of things, healthcare, pharmaceutical, you know, educational system. If you don't have this one thing, then you can't be successful. And we're just bombarded with that. So you have to be sensitive to where am I putting my energy, that there's a division and why is it necessary?
Yeah, that's good. And just
Mhm.
work to come from the consciousness of unity and inquiry and understanding and mutual respect. And we really are being called, I think, on another level to develop our communication skills. I run something called the Campaign for Consciousness every year. And this year,
Mhm.
the Campaign for Consciousness is based on communication. And so you can find that affirmation on Campaign for Consciousness on Facebook. We'll post it to the AGNT page. But essentially, it's a real call out to do an inventory of how we communicate, because we think our words are what communicates, but there is so much more. The way you laugh communicates, the way you hug communicates, the way you respect someone needing social distance, or the way you're even aware of, you know, bridging that conversation, the way you receive someone giving you feedback. All of that communicates. How we treat animals communicates. How we eat, how we sleep, everything communicates. So it's really, we're being called, I think, to the next level of looking at what our lives say and what our communications share as far as the message of who we are through all of the modes of communication, and learning to communicate in different ways with others that really like Temple said, brings us together, that does not polarize, that instead, honors differences, and it has some space for allowing, but also acknowledges our unity and consciousness and comes from that place. So there's much work to do in that department, whether it's on our social media accounts, whether it's in person, person to person, or whether it's just doing a radical inventory of our own ways of showing up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, someone's asking a question, Catherine, about how do you feel about requesting people to be vaccinated to come to our spiritual center? I know every center and every culture is unique, and everybody has to do what they're guided to do. That is not our stance. We do not ask that nor require that. We simply have a mask mandate, and that seems to work, very well. So we've been doing that since we opened at Easter. And to our knowledge, we haven't had anyone have anything, at least that was exchanged within our own community. Yeah, but I wouldn't ever take a public stand and request someone get vaccinated or not get vaccinated. I don't feel that's my job. I think my job is to tell people to follow your own inner guidance. I mean, that's what we've been teaching the mind and body all our lives. And I just still don't feel like we could just sacrifice principle at this point.
Right. And I do think it's important to remember, as far as, I know there are not a lot of medical conditions where doctors actually recommend people not get vaccinated, but just like some of our children don't have access to the vaccine at this point, there are some, very few, but some instances where a medical provider will tell someone with the condition they have, they'll recommend they not get the vaccine or not get it at this time. And so I think that's important to, I think it's important to just always have respect and common decency and common kindness. I've seen some really raw and difficult experiences that some folks have had with how we're treating each other, regardless of our choices. And I think that we can show up for everything, whether we agree, whether we disagree, whether we're hurt, whether we're angry. We can work to show up for everything with love and compassion and consciousness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And our wonderful Barbara Fields put on the chat room, it was Alvin Toffler. And very, very powerful read. And she put the name of the book also, a Future Shock.
Yes, and we'll go ahead and post that on our AGNT Facebook page as well for anyone that would like that out. So thank you for this conscious conversation today, Reverend Temple, and we are blessing you on your upcoming adventures. This is so exciting. This is so exciting. So thank you for being with us today on AGNT Speaks, and everyone in the Zoom room and online. Thank you for your presence here. If you're watching this at a future date and time, thank you for joining us in consciousness. Have a great week, and we will see you next week live here on AGNT Speaks.
Thank you, Erin. Wonderful job.